Welcome to Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls. That's right, it is the fans' favourite rugby podcast, brought to you by the fans' favourite rugby podcast host. That's right, it's me, Dave, back again with the ever-dependable, ever-present Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener.
Hello, listeners. Hello, David. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, Rory. I'm very well. I am at the very start of my Christmas break from work, so I'm enjoying a bit of downtime, enjoying kind of a little bit of a lie-in here, there, and everywhere. And obviously, throw the caveat in right now. It's in the next episode of the podcast, but we're in a bit of a R-Mob universe timeline time warp where we've recorded a podcast yesterday that is going out a week after, if you're listening to this one that we're recording today. So it's all a bit confusing.
Yeah, well, we will be joined by Mark Williams of TikTok fame and
the very
rugby
same
coaching in the Northwest fame. So
absolutely,
do tune in next week for your allocated festive dose of R-Mob, but it won't be a review of that weekend's fixtures. It's a bit of a review of 2025 and looking ahead to 2026.
Absolutely, and having recorded that yesterday, I can comfortably say it's a good one. So if you are available to listen on the 30th of December, which is when it will be coming out, I think, or 31st, I forget, please do. But for this episode, we're going to be talking Premiership rugby. We're going to be talking a bit of PWR. But as usual, we start off with a little bit of news. And it's a bit light on the ground. Maybe the rugby news world is slowing down for Christmas like everyone else is. I think the only thing of note that I've been able to pick out that's worth flagging for our audience is two big names in world rugby, because Prem rugby transfer news has surprisingly been quiet since we sang about it. Tommaso Menoncello off to Toulouse and Siya Kolisi, heavily rumoured, I'm not sure it's 100% confirmed, to Stormers. These are two of the biggest names in rugby right now, moving to two of the biggest teams in rugby. What does this tell you, Rory?
It tells me that your Italian pronunciation requires work. It tells me that Toulouse are doubling down. Peter Arquis left Toulouse recently, so it does leave a bit of a hole for a powerful 12, I guess. But they do have Gorges, Costes, Deporter. They've got a few already in the mix coming through the youth there. So it's an interesting pickup from there. But I mean, there's no doubt Menoncello is, if not world class adjacent in the centres. We've seen how well Brex is doing at Toulon in the last couple of weeks. So no doubt that Menoncello will thrive in that environment. But it's a big pickup for a backline where there's not been massive rumours of any other exits. So, off the top of my head, so you're thinking obviously Dupont and Entomac 9-10, Menoncello and Deporter, or could be one of several brilliant outside centres in there.
Is Barassi?
Or Chocobaras.
Chocobaras. Is Barassi at Toulouse, or is he?
No, I think he might be at Bordeaux. I can't remember. It's hard to keep track of how many brilliant young French players there are coming through. But as it could be Menoncello and Chocobaras.
Yeah.
Or one of several brilliant young French centres coming through. And then a back three of, Ramos, Capuozzo, Quins, Lebel. It's a bit unfair.
Strong get stronger, Rory. That's
they do.
Survival of the fittest.
And Kolisi to Stormers is an interesting one. Obviously moving from the Sharks, who have been quite loaded with Springboks over the last couple of years. Maybe the Stormers are, being the Cape Town team, maybe the more, dare I say, fashionable destination,
perhaps, and home of the new South African star boy as well, Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. Maybe bringing Kolisi there to help mentor, guide on a more day-to-day basis. Maybe there's an angle there,
possibly, or maybe it's just Kolisi just fancy going back to the coast.
Can't blame him. Can't say I blame him.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? I mean, the Stormers are obviously going good guns in the URC and the Champions Cup already. If they start doubling down, then maybe a sign of South African teams properly making an impact in European and domestic competition, which would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
We've been speculating about the ramifications of having the South Africans in these setups and whether it's a positive or not.
I think South African teams
the
taking it
jury's
seriously. The jury's out.
Yeah.
I think if South African teams were taking all competitions seriously, it strengthens the argument for their inclusion.
Yeah.
Whether this plays a part of that, probably there's nothing to do with that at all. It's probably just a balancing of where the South African international players are. Maybe they've got eyes on someone at the Sharks coming through, like Batho. My pronunciation's out the window today, Roy. Is it Batho Flakani? He's the young back rower coming through at the Sharks, who's in the South African under-20 side that we sung and kind of shouted about. Maybe they're just clearing the path for him at the Sharks to shine. Who knows? Or is he at Bulls? I don't know. Again, our knowledge outside, our knowledge of anything other than Prem Rugby is really showing here. So let's move quickly on before we get even more found out for our fraudulent ways.
Let's get back on a terra firma.
Let's get back on terra firma. Let's talk Prem Rugby, and I'm keen to get into Prem Rugby, and I'm keen to get into our usual running order of our chronological method of assessing the 5 games of a weekend. Because, Rory, the first game's one that's going to be great fun to talk about. Don't you agree?
No, I don't think we need to talk about it, to be honest. There's not much to say, actually. Fairly uneventful game. No real significance in the result. No really wider ramifications for either club. So I think just breeze past it, I would.
Well, it's easy to say there's no ramifications when you support the team getting 0 points from it. But I think Leicester fans would think differently because they got 5 very important points, and that could have huge ramifications on the side of the table that they're operating in, Rory.
I mean, you make an excellent point, but I'm not happy about it. Yes, so this is the most recent shellacking for Gloucester, this time away at Leicester Tigers at Mattioli Woods, Welford Road.
Yeah.
And from a Gloucester perspective, what is there to say? Very few shining lights left for us at this point.
The lights are dim. The lights are dim at the moment.
The lights are very dim. It's not a crumb of comfort. It's a source of great frustration. What I would say is we are still, even in games like this, capable of putting together passages of really good, exciting play. What we're not seemingly capable of doing is continuing to catch the ball throughout those passages.
It's a tricky skill.
It's a tricky skill. So we're not taking advantage of any of the good opportunities we do get. From a player's perspective, I mean, Charlie Atkinson, I think, I'm going to call it now, unfortunate to be yellow carded and give away the penalty try for tackling the corner.
So I will put hands up when I was watching this and I was asked, what do you think about that? I thought it was harsh. I thought it was very harsh.
I don't know what else he's meant to do to prevent a try. So
stay on his feet. But then again, if he stays on his feet, he ain't getting there.
He's not getting there, and the other guy's allowed to dive. I mean, I realise it's a bit of a cul-de-sac in rugby's laws.
What a cul-de-sac? What's the difference between jumping and diving?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, I could pick at that thread, but I'm not going to, because ultimately, although I think it was unfortunate and marred what was otherwise a broadly quite a good performance from Charlie, in the wider context of the game, it's largely irrelevant.
Very inconsequential. And I would say Charlie Atkinson was by far and away probably the only shining light, I'd say, in the Gloucester cupboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably stretching it, but I think Jack Clement wasn't bad. I think Afo for Sogbon was pretty good when he came on, particularly with the ball in hand. But I mean, outside of that, it's pretty slim pickings from a Gloucester perspective. It's been a very disappointing season so far for us. Very, very little for us to cheer about. Particularly after what was some, promising developments last season, really, where we arguably should have made the top 4 and probably let ourselves down by not doing so and giving away some poor results towards the end of the season. At the moment, it's hard to see what the fix is. The only one, and there's talk about bringing in a DOR, and I'm wondering whether that is potentially looking at what's happened at Chiefs and their decision to put Baxter more back into the coaching setup rather than the organisational setup. I think Skivs has been fairly honest that his strength is on the training paddock and not in sort of contract negotiations. Maybe that's the thinking there. But big questions have got to be asked of the organisation at Gloucester after what's happened from last year to this, or last season to this, I should say. The recruitment's been lackluster.
Hey, no, wait. They've been busy.
They've been busy. They've been busy. I mean, how many of the signings have actually been effective? Will Joseph, but when he's been fit. Injuries have been dreadful. Injuries have been dreadful, like unusually dreadful. But
yeah,
Will Joseph has been good. Ben Redshaw showed real promise for the 2 games he was fit for.
Yeah.
Will Trenholm looks like a bit of a diamond in the rough that we've picked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, outside of that, Josh Basham not really bringing much to the table. Nipo Laulala really disappointed in what he's brought so far.
Well, should we pause on Laulala and use that to focus on what was effectively a Nicky Smith demolition of Laulala at the scrum in the first half?
Yeah. I mean...
Or are you on the side of Laulala where he was convinced that Smith's hinging is what was causing all these scrums to go down?
I think Smith was hinging, but I think Smith was hinging tactically because Nipo had gotten too long-legged and he could really... So I think from what I could see from it, and this is, I may be joining too many dots, but the pitch I think was quite slippery from what they were saying on comms. So I think there'd been quite a bit of rain in the area. So what happened, Nipo was obviously trying to get quite low on Nicky Smith, who we know is one of, if not the best scrummager in loose heads in the league. So he's going to get quite low to try and be able to leverage his size and power because he's a massive man in that contest. But he's got quite long-legged, which meant he's lost the grip in the pitch, as you do, as you'll know from your own experiences. And Nicky Smith, I think, has used basically gravity to his advantage to accentuate how long-legged Nipo is and hinge him to floor first. So I think Nipo's right that Nicky was hinging, but Nicky was able to hinge that effectively because Nipo had got himself too long-legged and wasn't chasing his feet. Yeah. So this is like very in-depth tactical.
It is, and the fact that Nipo got pinged for it 3 times, he should have been adapting to that because he knew what was going on. Yeah, and he didn't adapt.
And he's experienced enough. He's experienced enough to adapt.
Absolutely.
So I have limited sympathy with him there, to be honest.
Yeah. But I did think that was a big part of Leicester's momentum in the first half.
I mean, it was a significant part. I mean, the biggest part really was just that Gloucester couldn't.
Oh yeah, the biggest part was that they were better than Gloucester. That was the biggest part.
Yeah, well, they were because ultimately, if you can't keep hold of the ball, you're going to lose a game. Ross Byrne, another really disappointing game. Thomas Williams,
he's gone.
Early speculation that he's checked out since he's signed elsewhere. Rumours being Saracens, obviously. It's probably a bit too early to say that. It might just be a bad game, but it's not a great sign, particularly with our lack of depth in that position.
He's not really been able to put his stamp on any game so far this season for Gloucester, I'd say.
No, he hasn't.
For a player of his quality, you'd expect at least 1 in every 2 games for him to have a moment where he's really stamping authority.
And club captain now. It's not brilliant. Obviously, the centres were completely decimated. Seb Atkinson's trying to carry on. Will Butler, best one in the world, is a squad option.
Yeah.
The pickup from Worcester, I think. I can't remember one of the champ clubs.
Yeah.
Rob Russell actually much brighter in his brief spell, but off injured after 25 minutes.
Yeah, after your scathing review of him last week.
No, fair play. He has taken up the Armob mantle as some do. Was much brighter, but then came off after 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Said Blake lasted 15 minutes.
The injury curse continues.
Yeah, Hathaway, who come on for Russell, also went off for an HIA at one point. It
doesn't stop.
It is mad at this point, really.
Yeah.
But no excuses because the Gloucester were rubbish. We should talk about Tigers because there are two teams in this equation.
Yeah, there are, but I'm slightly crossing that segue between the two. One, how good was Solomone Kata's try? Because of how good he was at identifying, but did that also show one of the glaring errors at the moment with Gloucester of how easy it is to score off of first phase?
Yeah, it was way too easy. So what I think happened was the back line shifted, particularly Ross Byrne. Now, Ross Byrne, on multiple occasions just in this game alone, but throughout, overcommits in defence constantly. Did the same for Tom Whiteley's try after the Stewart break, where he rushed up to no effect whatsoever and just left the hole for Tom Whiteley to sprint through. Defensively, he is It's worse than a revolving door. He's a genuine liability there. So he chases across. Tomos is obviously chasing from the scrum and follows him. But the scrum's gotten apart, so the back row hasn't been able to get off. In fact, I think Lewis Ludlow's actually being held in, which, is technically a penalty, but it's just clever play. It's what all backs should be doing in that situation. And it's left this massive gap. Thorley's tried to fill it, but by this point, Katter's going full tilt. He's rounded Tomos, and Katter is massive, and he's got good feet, and he's got good toe.
Yeah. So
Thorley, again, not one of his best games, to be honest, but can't make an impact in the tackle, and Katter goes in the corner. It's a really good identification from him, and it's really good. But it was better in the world. The gate was left open for him. You should be finishing it in that situation, because the gap between the scrum and the first defender was bizarre. I mean, you wouldn't see a gap that quick at the level I play at.
Yeah, that's saying something. But I think it was a lovely cherry on top to what was a very, very strong performance from Katter, who I think is quietly having a very good season.
Yeah, no, I thought he was really good. I think one of the problems that Katter was finding in early on in his career, and it was not a problem because it wasn't like he was totally ineffective, but he was a bit of a hard machine at times, because he does like the big shot, but also you found in games that either Leicester were wholly relying on him to just do something, or they weren't utilising him at all and he got completely lost in games. There seems to be a really good balance now where they're finding ways to get him into the games consistently and effectively. And to be honest, particularly when he's next to Parise, because they've got the double battering ram option.
Yeah. I think that definitely helped in the first half.
I think Woodward and Wand have been really good as well this season. But for me, that is the centre partnership if you want to compete as a Tigers squad.
For sure. No, I completely agree. And I think we also saw from Tigers I think we spoke about it a lot last season, about how they didn't seem to have... There was something not quite right there. It does feel like a different Leicester Tigers this season.
Yeah, it does. James O'Connor hasn't featured a huge amount. Jack Van Portfleet made an appearance in this game. I think it was the first game back for quite some time.
Yeah, it was.
Hamra Liebenberg's not playing. Ollie Cracknell wasn't there. Billy Chesham came back in this game after, I don't think he played since the autumn internationals. Obviously George Martin's not been involved at all. Actually, these players start coming back into that squad the way they're playing. Tigers are a genuine threat for the league this year. Obviously, they've taken the big scalp already.
Yeah, they've shown the blueprint for beating Bath. I think as I like to do sometimes, to pose a potentially contentious statement and to get your reaction. Billy Searle, outside bet for signing of the season so far?
Oh, he's been phenomenal. I mean, I'm not even sure it's an outside bet. I think he's got to be at least in the shortlist. Who's been a better signing so far this season? It'd be difficult to think of one off the top of my head. Given the profile he was signed at, let's say, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible in the way that's but Billy Searle was not the marquee signing. He wasn't even the marquee signing in that position.
No.
He probably wasn't. In fact, he wasn't even in the top two marquee signings in that position for Tigers this year, because James O'Connor or Orlando Bailey were both billed as being that. Billy Searle was a good option. He'd obviously, I think he came in last season, didn't he?
Yeah.
But his impact this season has been phenomenal. Left-footed, which is lovely. Always love a left-footed kicker, so that's a big tick in his favour. But he plays with a real abandon. His try, admittedly, in the face of pathetic defence from Gloucester, but his try was really well taken. He's danced around a few half-hearted tacklers, but he's taken, and he's done that sort of thing quite a lot this season. But how many tens are outperforming him so far in the league across this whole season?
Yeah. It's a good question, because I think the reason I flag this, because we've spoke about it in the past, perhaps informally, perhaps off podcast, but behind the current crop of England tens, if he keeps playing the way he does he start coming into the conversation at all?
Gut feel says international rugby is not in Billy Searle's future. Purely on the kind of intangible basis. I mean, it's hard to really pinpoint what it is he would have to do more than he is to get into that conversation. I think I would still get the sense that Billy Searle's not the man who's going to drag the team over the line in a game of real adversity. But he's certain behind that Leicester pack, he's certainly good enough to take full advantage when they're on top. And he's got balls like walls. You know what I mean? He landed that kick to beat Bath. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not clutch at all, but he hasn't. I don't think he's necessarily got that kind of Owen Farrell, George Ford, Finn Smith, type thing where he's going to be the absolute difference maker. But from a week to week in the league perspective, absolutely perfect profile of 10.
Okay. So I'm just thinking, because, we all remember Andre Pollard being really important for South Africa in the World Cup, being their fifth choice fly half. I always like to think who's England's fifth choice fly half. And I wonder if he's in contention for at least that role. And I think
there's an argument for it.
There's an argument for Billy Searle to be the fifth choice England kicker.
And here's your trophy, Billy.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Billy Searle. But yes, and you touched it before. Really good to see Van Poortvliet and Chesham back. As you said, we've not seen a lot of them this season. It is always good. Like, even as a Northampton Saint fan, I'm not going to kind of say that I don't want to see these quality players out there playing rugby, because I'd rather see them playing than not playing.
Obviously, really, really important from an England perspective to start seeing them playing as well.
Yeah.
But Ollie Chesham getting a nice try off a really nice Blamire offload. Blamire, one who's potentially climbing the ranks again to get back in England contention. Having had a bit of a taste of it. There's not much to criticise from Leicester so far this season.
So my only criticism of Leicester at the moment is, how often would you suspect a Leicester Tigers team who scores 6 tries and a penalty try, of which neither Ollie Hassel-Collins or Adam Radwan are the scorers of any of them?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that's...
I'm mainly annoyed because I had a bet on... please don't gamble if you don't wish to.
Please gamble responsibly.
Please gamble responsibly.
Our suggestions.
No, but I had something on which had either of them to score a try, and neither of them did. And it was very frustrating because it's usually an absolute banker. And I remember feeling quite frustrated watching the game because... And I've spotted this with some other teams. I think some teams are not utilising wingers as best as they could do. And I think it's perhaps part of this modern day approach where flankers find themselves out on the flanks of the pitch rather than just the flanks of the scrum. And they're more used to have kind of safe ball. And you find wingers having to be the first man at the ruck on the wings. You saw that quite a lot with Leicester. I saw it quite a lot with some other teams as well. It's probably not a big thing. It's definitely not a big thing because they're both actually scoring tries for fun. But it's something I spotted in this game. I just wondered whether we criticised Leicester of this particularly last season and not utilising their wingers. I just hope they don't creep back into that behaviour. Or maybe it was just so easy to cut through the Gloucester defence that anyone could do it, so they didn't need Radwan or Hassel-Collins to do that.
To be honest, I think that might be close to the truth, in that the gaps at the middle were too enticing for them.
Why go in the window when the front door's wide open?
Exactly. I would say there's a couple of points where there's some of the owners have got to be on the wingers to get themselves on the ball as well, and get themselves in the situations. Sometimes the game just doesn't quite work like that. I mean, with regards to flankers being out wide, I think you've got to take into account what you're trying to create across the pitch is mismatches. And if you've got a flanker, who are the best wide flankers? Someone like Ted Hill, potentially. Speed of a winger, size of a back rower. Your opportunity to create a mismatch by having him out on the wing is obvious. So that's what it is. It's a bit of tactical chess in that sense. And then what you're hoping for is that they can get an arm free and offload to a winger who's hopefully able to take the opportunity to find an offload and find the space. So I don't know that it's necessarily a problem with that, but in this game maybe Radwan or Hassel-Collins weren't as prominent, but You know, ultimately they still scored 45 points, so I don't think they'll worry too much about it.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be losing sleep, put it that way. Yeah, as you mentioned, Rory, Leicester, they won 45-14, putting on 6 tries, a penalty try, converting 4 of them, and that was all having a red card as well in the final 15 minutes for Charlie Clare. Gloucester, hopefully they have a nice Christmas and they can go again next week, because still waiting for that moment.
We looked a pretty miserable camp, to be honest. So I'm not at the moment. It's there's not a lot of optimism for me.
No, and I think that's understandable. Let's move on. Let's save you from this agony. Let's move on to Saracens versus Exeter Chiefs. This was a really, really interesting game with 2 former powerhouses of the league and Europe facing against each other, and looking at the form books, 2 teams in very different form. And it kind of went with the form book, I'd say, unexpectedly.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't look like that early on. Sarri's got 2 early tries, Kolisi and Malin's. Kolisi's first try was a really good read of Henry Slade, stopping a certain break, possible try. And then Malin's was nice right at the back of a line-out. I think Theo Dan pops out and feeds him in, which was a nice moment, although they were potentially a little bit lucky to get a second bite of the cherry for the line-out, which probably should have been a dummy throw initially. At that point, Sarries was sort of cruising, I'd say. But, you know, Chiefs got sort of kept in the game. I mean, I think having Henry Slade there at the moment, you know, he's kicking so well. You know, he got a couple of penalties in the first sort of half an hour, which just sort of took the edge off the Sarries' momentum. And that's, I think, his kicking off the tee has been a real boon for them this season, because it's obviously not Harvey Skinner's strength, by any stretch. And then when they got the Varney try, where, I mean, Kolisi ostensibly loses the high ball. I think he's a bit stitched up by Van Zale, who asked him to make up a bit too much ground in the backfield. But they managed to put Varney on the post. I think it's Riddle, who competes with him.
On debut.
And gets the ball. And I think it was just a very back and forth game. It was quite entertaining to watch. The momentum did swing back and forth quite a bit. But really, when in the sort of last quarter, Fisilau becomes very prominent, scores two really good tries. One off a really nice break from Daf Jenkins down the left.
Yeah.
And the other from off the back of a really strong line-out ball where they just absolutely battered Saracens through that one, which
it's not something you see very often at the StoneX.
No, and it's sort of all good. It's good from, if you're an Exeter fan, it's good signs that they now look to have lots of strings in their bow again. You know, they were really one-dimensional last season. But now they've got a pack that's not just competing physically, which is what they were lacking. It's starting to dominate teams as good as Saracens. But they've also got players like Fisilau, like the young Italian back rower who's injured at the moment.
Oh, I thought you were heading towards Zamboni. You're for Ross Vincent.
Ross Vincent, Kane James. You know, those players. I know, you know, back in that kind of Sam Simmons mould, which they've been they used so successfully. Players like that are now kind of stepping up, and now not just stepping up, but, you know, they're thriving at this level. Fisilau sort of, I think, is having his breakthrough moment.
He's definitely very prominent. There's something about Exeter and second halves. I saw something, I can't remember the exact stats exactly, but it's something like out of the 20 or so tries they've scored this season, 16 of them have been in the second half or something along those lines. So they're becoming real second half merchant. Like we saw when the Saints game were in the very first fixture, they were 31-7 down at half time, and they come back to draw 31-31 or whatever it was. They seem to have something. It's either a mentality. There is a reason he's not getting selected, I guess. But like, I think when you watch them, it's not like, I don't think it's a stamina thing. I don't think it's necessarily that simple. They look stronger when it comes to the back end of the games. They just absolutely outmuscle teams in the final 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, obviously Len Ikitau in the centres is helping that.
That helps.
Go forward. You know, Fisilau, I think, is now properly filled out. He was. I think he was probably still a bit on the lightweight side even last season, but he looks like he's really filled out.
Do you think
Zamboni's a big lad? Daf Jenkins is a big lad. Tom Hooper's obviously coming on. He got a bit of a daft yellow in this game.
Just a speech.
But he's a big bloke. Ethan Roots is big. The props are big. Goodrick Clark and Chumbadze.
I like Chumbadze. I like the look of Chumbadze.
Yeah.
Do we think this year, with the backdrop of Willis leaving, is the year for Borthwick to look at Fisilau in the England camp a bit closer with how he's playing?
Well, I mean, he's in a very similar mould to Benal. So I guess my question would be, do you think Fisilau is as good or better than Benal in that position? Because my suspicion is Borthwick probably thinks he's got enough players in the kind of small and mobile quality, and he's probably looking for someone who can fill the Willis boots, and those are harder to come by.
Well, yeah, as we saw in this game, he even when Sarries are losing, he still manages to look a league of his own. He should absolutely trademark these barnstorming runs because no one else seems to do them like he does.
Honestly, he just flattens people, and I don't know. Every week I watch him, and he suddenly looks bigger.
He's getting ready for France, Rory. He's getting ready for France.
Honestly, just around his neck and jaw and shoulders, every week he just suddenly looks like he's just growing.
So I do wonder if there's something there, because as a man who looks at the stats, Tom Willis used to be guaranteed 80-minuter every week. These last 3-4 rounds, he's a player who's now getting subbed at the 60-minute mark. So I don't know whether there's a actual decision being made to beef him up even more, make him even more impactful, with the idea of then subbing him off so he can still go and empty his tank, but he doesn't need to empty his tank for 80 minutes anymore. He can afford that bit of extra muscle, bit more beef on him, and do it for 60 minutes instead. Maybe nothing, but it's just something, as a man who looks at the numbers, you notice these things. And especially when you play fantasy rugby and he's often your captain, I'd rather he played 80 minutes than 60, but even when he plays 60 minutes, he still stat pads pretty comfortably. Like, if you look at the stats for this season, the defenders beaten column, just single-handedly, he's in first place on 52. Second place is in the 20s. He is a force. He's a freak when it comes to stat padding and just batting down defensive lines. There's no one else who can do it like him in the Prem, that's for sure.
I mean, he's physically so different to really anyone else in this league. There's no one else of that kind of size, and I can't remember the last time there was a player of that size or adapt to that. I mean,
Pickamo for his 1 year at Northampton.
Yeah, but he wasn't exactly barnstorming.
Manoa at Northampton. I'll try not to name just Northampton players.
Yeah, Manoa's probably close. I mean, maybe Nick Easter, but he wasn't as tall.
Not quite. We can't go as far back as Delanio.
Manoa's probably the only one that I can maybe think of at the top of my head.
Yeah. Bill Matter's not too far off, I'd say, when he's in top form.
Actually, that's a good point. Bill Matter's definitely in that kind of camp as well. But if you use it well, it's bloody effective.
Yeah. But unfortunately, Saracens didn't use it well enough because they still, at the StoneX, and not for the first time this season, lost at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd maybe talk about it on the future pod.
Yeah, we talk about it next week as well.
Yeah, but something for me isn't quite clicking with that Saracens team, and I don't know exactly what it is. I couldn't put my finger on it when I was watching it. But something doesn't feel like they're firing on all cylinders. And I'm not sure if it's because they look a bit looser in defence. They look easier to score against than they have done, really, even in some of the leaner years since their heyday. They look easier to score against than they ever did. The line out isn't as tight as you would expect from Saracens, and I think Theodan has to be kind of pinpointed for that at this point. Their set piece isn't the guaranteed source of possession you would expect for Saracens.
Yeah.
And then I think there's, in some positions, they're just lacking a bit of energy and a bit of zip. I've never been wholly convinced that Van Zyl is the top quality 9 that a team like this needs.
No, I've felt that as well.
I'm wondering if they would profit more from just backing Charlie Bracken at this point.
Back Bracken, you heard it here.
I'd back Bracken. Yeah, I don't know. It's not an easy one to pinpoint, but something just doesn't quite line up for me in that Surrey's team at the moment. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but maybe it's just a bit of energy.
Yeah, well, I sense it as well. I still think on their day they are very, very good and very, very entertaining to watch, which is really odd because I never used to think of Saracens being an entertaining team to watch. But ever since they've started to try and back some of these younger players, they're a bit more enjoyable to watch, I think, which is good.
Yeah.
But still, I think you're right that they used to be a team that if you went behind to them, you had no chance in hell of clawing it back because they would absolutely suffocate you. And they don't have that anymore. They don't have that aura.
It's a lack of aura. It's a definite lack of aura now.
And Exeter exposed that. They went away and they won the game 30 points to 24, getting a bonus point, even despite having 2 yellow cards. Was still able to beat the mighty Saracens at their home turf. But moving on swiftly, Rory. The other Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff. A lovely little canter.
David, just a moment before we do that. Is the Prem making a mistake having 2 3 p.m. kickoffs on a Saturday?
Well, so they make this point of saying every single game is televised, but they still insist on having 2 games on at the same time. For what reason, I don't know. If you're going to make the point of having every game televised, why not just have them at different kickoff times and spread it through the weekend?
But also, it's clashing with. I mean, you're clashing with not just the community game, but you're clashing with all the football as well. I know that I know there's a 3 p.m. blackout, but it's when people go and watch the football.
Yeah, there is absolutely no reason why they couldn't change the Saturday games. So one's a 2 p.m. kickoff and one's a 5:30 kickoff. There's no reason they couldn't do that. So people can, even if people are part of the community game, they can still catch the 5:30 game, for example. It doesn't make sense. I'm sure someone somewhere in a gravy tie would be able to give us a good reason why it's still that way. But
it screams RFU Council.
Even though we know it probably has nothing to do with it. It does seem like a missed opportunity, especially if they're going to sing and shout about having every game televised. Well, actually televise it. Yeah. Because this one is, especially with the rise of PWR, who also play games at this time, this particular weekend, and I'm very glad that this happened, but the Quins Bears women game was on the main TV channel, and the 2 rugby games were on Discovery Plus.
Yes, well, and obviously we'll talk about it a bit more later, but I was at that, and it was a great occasion to be at. Yeah. But it is a bit strange that
if you're going to champion both of those leagues and they're going to have conflicting fixtures, why not put games on multiple channels? They didn't even do that. They had it all behind on the red button or on Discovery Plus. So maybe a bit more thinking, a bit more discussions needed with the broadcaster. Who knows? But you've done a good job there of stalling me in my stride as I geared myself up for the summary of the Northampton.
Gird your loins.
The Northampton Saints versus the Sale Sharks at the Cinch Stadium at Franklin's Gardens. And where do I start? Let's start at the beginning. Well, once upon a time, there was a young lad with blonde hair and a band around his head and a lovely little bit at the back of his hair who goes by the name of Henry. Now, Henry decided on this day to show everyone how he's still a very good rugby player. And
tell us more, Rugby Gruffalo.
Okay, I can't keep this up for an entire game summary. Basically, Northampton started fast. They started with intent and they put points on for fun and really put Sale to the sword. The likes of Henry Pollock, George Hendy were stupendous in this game in general. They really.
George Hendy, we haven't done a bit on the Ginger Flash for a while.
Well, I saw he's being nicknamed in some news outlets as the Ginger Penno, which that's
don't hate it, but I prefer ours.
I prefer ours. Ginger Flash is better, but I think Ginger Penno, being kind of cast in a similar light to Damien Penno, is by no means a bad thing.
No, absolutely. And there is something similar about their style. They're quite
languid in their movement.
Quite languid, quite bandy-legged in some ways.
And that sidestep of Hendy, there he absolutely left. I think it was Aaron Reid. Or Tomo Flaherty, just for nothing. That
so elusive.
Summarises George Hendy's elusiveness like no other. And I think fair play to the commentators because they described it well. It's just the fact that the distance the sidestep covers is so vast, it's impossible to get it right as a defender. and he just makes them grasping at thin air. It was really quite something.
We discussed this at great length earlier this year.
Oh,
I mean, he's a Frankenstein player of all the bits of a human you wouldn't put in your classic rugby physique. But whatever it is, that there is some absolute magic dust in the way he's built that just makes him so effective. I mean, I really liked his. I mean, I think that try was very good, the one with the sidestep. I really liked his first one where he's just sort of fed the ball and just somehow finds a gap to run it in from 30 meters through 8 defenders, and no one seems to realise he's going there.
He's one of these players that has that natural knack to break tackles. Which I'm really pleased he's in a Saints shirt, and I do wonder whether he plays a part into the Furbank decision making of him leaving, because obviously Hendy can play at fullback. There's elements to his game that need some work at fullback, but he's certainly exciting going forwards. I also would like to draw attention to a man who quite often goes a bit underrated, but as spoken about as others, but probably one of our better signings in recent years, Josh Kemeny. That try was phenomenal. Yeah, we spoke about Catter. We spoke about Catter in the Leicester game, it being an open kind of route through and easy for him. Kemeny did not have an open route through. He beat about 6 defenders, and he again not a great showing for Aaron Reid's defensive showing here, but again left him clasping at air. And when your six is doing that,
Aaron Reid, I feel a little for Aaron Reid that he is filling in at fullback. But I mean, the important thing, firstly, it comes off another really good Hendy break.
Yeah.
And then it's a great line from Kemeny. It's a proper screamer. So he steps. I had it as he steps for Mueller, Manreen, Luke Cowan-Dickey, and then Aaron Reid to get under the line. I mean,
those first 3 names. Those first 3 names are usually top of the tackling stats at the end of the year. So
just left them all for dead, and he was, he looked comfortable doing it. I would, that is a player that if you keep it around, you should, because he is quietly effective in most games. But if he can pull out the odd moment like that as well, he is something special to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and the other angle from a Saints perspective, and as you can probably see, listener, actually no, that didn't make sense. Listener, you can't see, but if you're watching a clip, you'll see there's a little Saints shirt behind me, so I am a little bit biased, but it was so just having Tommy Freeman and Ollie Slightholm to come off the bench.
Yeah, I did want to bring this up to you because I think you've talked a lot about kind of the injury issues that Saints have gone through, but the fact that those two are now back in contention for squads. How are you feeling about Saints going into the second part of the season?
I'm feeling real good, Rory. I'm not going to lie, because we've had most of last season was quite rocky with injuries. I think we're coming into the first time in probably maybe 8-9 months where our unavailable list is just a handful of players. It's been a long time since that's been the case. So being able to go into games now, being able to relatively pick at full fitness, like this week we were able to rest Hutchinson, for example. Like he's played a lot of rugby. We've been able to give him a week off. We've been able to give Bello a couple of extra weeks to recover from injury. So like there's players who in the past we would have had to really rely on. They're getting a bit of a break. And I'm really glad to see the likes of Toby Tame, although he had a rocky-ish start to his Prem career, he's starting to look like he may well be at this level. Took his try well.
I think so. I mean, another assist from Pollock as well, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
He looks. I know he was very well talked about as someone to watch out for this season. Physically, he looks a good prospect. He's a big, tall lad. Be interested to see how he develops, but he's the right sort of shape for a Saints back.
Yes,
he seems to be in the right kind of app of the kind of players that you look for. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the squad as it was now. So, and the bench is what I think is really interesting. The fact they had Fischetti on the bench, Chunyamunga on the bench, Callum Chick on the bench, Tom James back on the bench. I think, friend of the pod, Archie McParland's had a bit to say this season, but he's not maybe taking his opportunity really to establish himself. And Tom James, I think, is an underrated scrum half option.
Yeah.
And then Freeman and Slightholm is your other two back options. It's a good 23. Curtis Langdon's maybe the name that really stands out as being the one missing, but
so I would say really stepped up
at one point.
Yeah, he's really stepped up.
I remember who it was who he flattens, but there's someone he absolutely runs. It might have been Quirk.
Yeah.
And I think he actually flattens Curry as well. And I'm thinking, as I recall, I think he batters over Quirk and then over Curry.
Yeah.
In a really powerful carry. And I remember watching Craig Wright at under 20 level and thinking he was a powerful prospect.
He was the under 20 hooker who a couple of years ago, there was like that viral clip going where he was just wheels and he absolutely gassed. I think it was like the Welsh under 20s winger. He has filled out massively. He is just a ball of muscle. So I think he's playing himself to be Langdon's understudy when everyone's fully fit, easily and comfortably, which is really good to see. And I would feel absolutely devastated if I was to go this entire game and not mention that I think Tom Pearson's quietly been our player of the season so far this season as well.
He's been superb. I really like Tom Pearson. I think he's been when fit. He's been one of the most consistent back rows for a couple of years. But he's the sort of dap. The height of him. Do you think there's got to be something in that? Because you think of players physically, he is comfortably in the kind of mold of someone like a piece of Steph Toy. Not saying he's necessarily as good a player, before anyone jumps up, but he's physically that build, and he carries and he's surprisingly quick.
Yeah, I think this season we're seeing more glimpses of Pearson in the London Irish shirt in that season before they went kaput, which was when he won Player of the Season, I think, or Breakthrough Player. But he was some player, and I was so excited we got him, and I think we're starting to see glimpses of that in a Saints shirt more and more now. So long may that continue. We should probably touch on Sharks a little bit. I think we're seeing how important George Ford is to them. Certainly in the first half, they looked absolutely aimless in attack.
The first half is as poor a performance as I've seen from anyone other than Gloucester this season. I'm just saying, I'm going 2-footed on Gloucester at the moment. I'm really disappointed at the moment. No, first half, they were dreadful. They looked, tactically, they were completely lost. They kicked abysmally. Which obviously, George Ford not being there is a big problem for them. I grant them that. But they gave Saints so many counter-attacking opportunities off their kicking, either by not kicking it far enough off the pitch to prevent the quick throw, or just not making it off the pitch. I think at least one penalty didn't go off. It might have been more than that. But the real problem, and it's not something you would say about Sale team too often, they lacked energy. They looked really
do you think that's as a result? We spoke of last week the tackling numbers, the defensive work they've done over the last 2 rounds of the European Champions Cup. That must have taken something out of them, because they didn't seem to have the same energy as they did, say, when they were playing Clermont the week before.
No, I think that is definitely part of it. I also think there's an extent to which you can only live on that kind of energy for so long. Because I think they're trying to surmount their current injury crisis by that kind of backs to the wall, us against the world, kind of tackle us to victory kind of energy. And it's an energy. I love it when teams go to that. I think when Sarries were at their peak, that was when they were at their best, when they were in that kind of energy. And I know it's not going to be a popular sentiment, but I thought when Sarries were at their everyone hates us and we don't care kind of energy, and we're just gonna batter you through strength of will, that was the Sarries at their best. And I think Alex Sanderson, being a veteran of that setup, has tried to bring that to Sale and has done it effectively a lot. Bear in mind the run of games they went on to get to the final last year. He's good at bringing that kind of siege mentality, but there has to be a finite amount of time that you can live off that, because there's only so many ways you can motivate a team into that frame of mind. At some point, they need to go into a game feeling like relaxed and comfortable and like they're better than the team they're playing against, rather than we're just gonna beat them through strength of will rather than believing we're better players. And there's a bit of I'm just interpreting from the outside looking in, right? So I could be way off the mark. I get the impression that combined with the injury crisis, they are just trying to get by on that siege mentality alone. And it's a finite resource.
Yeah, no, I think you're quite right. And unfortunately, so this game ended 47-21 to Northampton. Continuing Sale's poor run of form in this competition. I know it's early days, and they can still do what they did last year and surge back up the table, but they're certainly giving themselves one hell of an uphill battle if they want to redo that. Yeah. And as you say, with their injury problems, it doesn't look likely. But they were playing up against a very red-hot Northampton on the day. Moving on to Harlequins versus Bristol at the Allianz Stadium. Rory, I believe you were there in person. So, as always, we do like an in-the-person review, despite it being particularly foggy.
I was there. It is a little foggy. Speaking of poor runs of form, Harlequins are right down in the doldrums with... I mean, to be honest, of the teams at the bottom of the table... Sale, Quins, Gloucester and Newcastle, there's not a huge amount between them, actually, in terms of performance at the moment. But Quins may have been the worst of the lot this weekend. And that's saying a lot given that Gloucester game.
Yeah.
I thought Quins were dreadful in this match.
There's not a lot positive to say about Quins at the moment. And there hasn't been for some time. I can't quite put my finger on it, and we've been having this trouble to put our finger on it. I think maybe it's the curse of his podcast, because it feels like since the start of the podcast they've really struggled to be the great entertainers they're built to be, and the fact that they put on this massive show, and to then go out and play like that, and I know Quins fans agree with us. They are not happy with what's going on with that club at the moment, and rightfully so.
It looks like a pretty bleak place to be. I mean, it's the parallels between Quins and Gloucester at the moment are really, really strong in terms of what it looks like from the outside looking in. They've got the same curse. They can't finish off a move. They're even less efficient in the 22 than Gloucester.
And this game in particular,
it was comical at points. I was watching it. I said I go pretty much every year to a big game. As one of my oldest mates is a big Quins fan, so I tend to go with him and his family. Yeah. It's been a real struggle for me for many years. So he's I wouldn't say he's as one-eyed as your average Saints fan, but he's up in that bracket as a Quins fan. But even he was going into this with real lack of optimism, and very early on. I mean, the Revuvu try early on was pretty significant. It was just so easy. It was so easy for Bristol in this game. And Quins couldn't keep hold of the ball. And they were so inaccurate. Given the level of quality in that team, players we've really rated. Obviously, Marcus Smith is the obvious one, right?
Yeah. And
there are points when he's just trying to do it all himself, but mostly just a complete lack of support around him. Luke Northmore, lobster claws for hands on this occasion. Oscar Beard, not much better. Chandler Cunningham himself, really ineffective, I thought.
And annoyingly, I think he was played at 8 in this game, and I've been championing to see him at 8, and then he doesn't. I thought the Armob curse might work in his favour, but not this week.
No. Really poor.
Strange
selection decisions, not picking Will Evans.
Yeah. I was going to say, Zach Carr looked okay.
Look, Zach Carr, you can see he's got that real enthusiasm of a player who's having his breakthrough season and is determined to make an impact.
Yeah.
But what I would say is you have to reward that. I get that. But for me, it was a real error not starting Will Evans and Jack Kenningham in this game against a Bristol team that you have to slow the ball down. Just a bizarre selection decision. And there's amongst a few that Quins have had this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And questions have to be asked of the selection policy and just the coaching team at this point, because they don't look coached. They don't look coached at all. They basically look a bit all at sea. They don't really. I can't decipher a plan, and it's not like Quins at their best a few years ago when it was you can't decipher a plan, but that you could have beautiful mind it and see the plan in the chaos kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's now just they just seem to be running in lots of different directions.
Yeah. I think that's it. And this was another game, so I was watching Caden Murley quite closely just to see like how wings go, and he was putting effort in to try and get on the end of moves.
Yeah.
Never got the ball. I think he made 2 carries the entire game, which when you're Caden Murley, you may as well not have him on the pitch because that's what he's there for. So,
and I feel for Murley. I think he's one of those who has stepped up this season. Stepped up as a captain in several, including this game. You know, you can see that you can see how much he cares about what's going on and that he's really, really invested. But he's being badly let down by the rest of that team at the moment. It's just a difficult watch for a Quins fan. And I've got to come back to some of the selection issues, right? So obviously a couple of dropouts in the loose head. They start Hobson, loose and Harry Williams at tight head. Now you know that if you give Bristol launch pad off set piece, particularly the scrum, how dangerous they are off the ball in hand. Why would you not start Boris Wenger and Delgado?
I don't know.
Try and get parity or upper hand in the scrum.
They've not done that in a single game this year, so I'm really wondering: are they just showing nothing in training, meaning that they can't justify selecting them first, or are they just? I don't get it either. They've not started those two together once.
I don't understand it. I get it. If you've got Finn Baxter and Harry Williams there to start, then okay, I can see that because they're good scrummagers. But why are you starting your youth team loose head when you could start the 2 Argentinians there?
Yeah. I will say and interject there that I thought Will Hobson around the park looked mighty hungry to impress. He had a good game.
Yeah, he got around the park. But
I take your point.
Again, the same thing as that car. Like, I get it, you've got to reward these players, but you've also got to pick a team to win a game. And I don't think Quins are doing that. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the way Quins are going, if they had done that and picked Will Evans, I still think they wouldn't have beaten this Bears side.
No, I think they were poor. They were really, really poor.
They were really poor. And I think the moment that we have to talk about, our fans would not be pleased if we didn't touch on this.
We'd be run out of town.
We'd be run out of town. You'd lose your crown. We're talking Ellis Genge, and we're talking that 50-metre glorious run-in.
I mean, it was a real I was there moment.
Yeah.
I mean, to be in the stadium to see it, I was out of my seat. It's so special. For lots of reasons. I mean, I love Ellis Genge. I've always loved Ellis Genge. I'm an absolute Ellis Genge apologist at every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's getting better with age. I think he's really in his prime at the moment. Both as a personality in the game and as a player. The fact that he had to go off, went off and then had to come back on after 10 minutes and was still everywhere. You know, he was so involved. It was really noticeable how involved he is, right?
His fitness level is sky high at the moment.
He physically he is. He's on another planet.
Another props.
Almost. I can't think of another loose head off the top of my head who's as fit as him and around the park. Maybe Angus Bell.
Maybe Finn Baxter, but he was injured in this game, so maybe not.
There you go. But the fact, so Ellis Genge, he's in the backfield, you know, maybe taking his foot off the gas for a minute at that moment in time. Ball obviously gets kicked out. I think it's, was it Randall that takes it?
I think it was. Frank Randall was on by that point.
Yeah. And chucks it back in to Ellis Genge, who stood there. And I imagine this from my perspective, had that been thrown to me. Now, I don't have Ellis Genge's pace or power or ability. I would have been
you're stopping
panic. Yeah, I would have been in pure panic mode if that ball had been passed to me in space in the backfield with 50 meters to run at the line. I'd be looking for the nearest contact or a quick offload.
Yeah,
Ellis Genge, head down, skins Lucas Friday, which if there was ever a physical mismatch in this game, it was that one. And then just keep going. I think it's Marcus Smith who tries to make the covering tackle right in the corner at the end.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's either Marcus Smith or Nick David. By that point, Ellis Genge has reached sort of terminal velocity. He's not being stopped. I mean, points off for a not more elaborate try celebration. Yeah. I'd like to see him pull out a Pollock.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But the smile on his face afterwards. I mean, do you know the only smile I've seen similar to that was Kieran Treadwell the week before against Bayonne for the
cross
kick. There's nothing that amuses me more than when a forward has done something they know that they're in no way picked to do in attack. And you can't help but enjoy it. It's one of the reasons why I love this sport. And similar, I guess, to why I love like cricket, is when there's an acknowledgement amongst all players on the pitch when someone does something that's insane and you can just have a laugh about it. I love that. Yeah. You can see real joy in his face. And the Bristol players were going mad about it as well, which I love to see.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, a proper I was there moment. I mean, it's going to live long on the highlight reels, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that stats that I think someone went back like 5 years of the times props have run in tries in open play. And I think the greatest distance covered of that amount have all been done by Ellis Genge, like the top 10 times it's happened.
Yeah.
So he's definitely in a league of his own about what he does in that propping show.
Pace-wise, when we were growing up, pace-wise, he would be similar speed to a lot of very top-level back rows when we were growing up.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
You know, he's probably about the same pace as Delalio was.
Yeah. Like he's no slow coach. Like he's got a bit of gas to him as well. And and he's just a bundle of muscle. So fair play to Ellis Genge, giving us a real special moment. And like Bristol, they feel like injuries are starting to wane. Their players are coming back. Interesting to see how they push on the rest of the season. Outside bet for top 4, maybe, when it comes to the end of the season. I'm
not even sure they're necessarily an outside bet, to be honest, David. I mean, so at the moment they're 5th, having won 5 games and lost 2. I mean, given the injury crisis they had, that is remarkable. So, I mean, they've beaten Northampton.
Yeah, the Northampton C team, yeah.
But they still won.
They did still win, convincingly.
Yeah, they lost away at Bath, fair enough.
Who doesn't?
And they lost away at Saracens in the first couple of weeks of the season when their injury crisis was already pretty significant. But they've beaten Tigers. They beat Gloucester away. Again when their injury crisis was really significant. They beat Chiefs at home. Yeah, who doesn't? But we didn't know that at that point. They've beaten Chiefs at home, and that's at the time we didn't know how good Chiefs were going to be this season. But
it's more than Northampton have done.
Exactly. And now they've won away at Big Game. As well as winning their first 2 games in the Champions Cup.
Yeah.
I don't think they're outside bet for top 4. I think they're right in the mixer for it because you've got. I mean, Bath. We're all assuming they're going to be runaway leaders at this point. Chiefs and Saints have the same record, but there's still part of me that thinks Chiefs are more likely to fall away a bit,
okay.
just off a lack of. I think outside of Henry Slade and obviously Jack Yendall, they don't have that knowledge of how you reach the final of the Prem. Do you know what I mean? For the big run in. So part of me feels like it's not guaranteed because they're defying all expectations already this season, so it could well be wrong. But part of me thinks Chiefs may fall away in the second half of the season. I don't think Saints will, assuming the injuries don't get bad again. And then Tigers look like they're going to be well in the mix. And then you got Bristol and Saracens. Saracens have been well out of it for me for the last few weeks. Maybe they'll turn it around. But with Bristol, with the way they're playing, the players they got back, I think they've got as good a chance as Saracens, Tigers, and Chiefs, certainly.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. And in this game, they comfortably got 40 points to 14 away in a big game for Harlequins. It's a real statement of intent, I think, from Bristol, and a real statement of the opposite of intent from Harlequins. And then moving on from that game, we move to the Red Bulls up against the mighty Bath up at Kingston Park. Another sellout for Newcastle, which is I think 5th sellout in a row, which is big news. But I think it's a story as old as time. This one, it's water we've crossed many times. The Bath bench, the Bath pack.
Yeah, they brought on 8 subs at once. So let's just put that into some context. The subs they brought on. Let me just run through them. Tom Dunn, I think, record cap holder for Bath. At stalwart of the Prem. Benno Abano, in and around England caps, one of the best loose heads in the league. Thomas du Toit, shout for one of the best players in the world. Ed Hill, maybe the most intriguing athlete in the league and an England international. Sam Underhill, arguably the best 7 in England. Ben Spencer, arguably the best 9 in England. Cam Redpath, son of an international, all Scotland international, hundreds of Bath caps. And Alfie Barbary.
Best haircut in the league?
Best haircut in the league. And one of the most explosive ball carriers in the league. Probably behind only Willis and Mata for explosive eights in the league.
Yeah, for power. Yeah,
for power, just for power alone. And they brought all 8 of them on at once. Now, I won't go through the Red Bulls bench in the same way because I don't have a backstory for a lot of them.
No, it doesn't quite read the same. But yeah, the Bath bombs were in full effect and were fizzing.
They were
when they came off.
But let's and the first team's no slouches either. It's obviously it was a rotated side, but there's a lot of very good players in there. Half-time, Red Bulls 14, Bath 19, and I would
first 10-15 minutes, Newcastle were looking pretty good.
They were, and I would say you could argue that Bath were maybe a little bit fortunate to get all 3 of those tries.
Yeah,
in some ways. A bit against, particularly the first Frost one, I thought was a bit against the run of play.
Yeah,
they get a scrum pen, which is a bit unfortunate because actually up to that point, Red Bulls were scrummaging quite well and certainly getting parity, and then just seemed to get it wrong in that one scrum. Just lost concentration, and then they kick to the corner and they maul it over, which is sort of a bit of a story of the Red Bulls season at times. Just lacks concentration at the wrong time, killing them when they're performing well. But that first half, Red Bulls, I thought really good. Leather Barrel's try after 3 minutes was great. I mean, I've said before, the Leather Barrel may be my favourite surname in the league. But he was excellent. Maffey scoring a try off the back of a line-up maul. I mean, I would say he's potentially got off the boil a little bit.
Yeah, it was
start of the season.
It was a relatively quiet game by his standards, I'd say. But most number 8s up against that Bath back row usually do have quiet games.
Yeah. But at that point, when Maffey goes over, I think they'd coughed up maybe 3 red zone opportunities and not scored.
Yeah.
And that's really where the crux of it is for Red Bulls. They don't score tries when they've got opportunities. And actually, to be honest, it's a tale of all the teams at the bottom of that league at the moment.
It's that.
Maybe barring Sale, but certainly Red Bulls, Gloucester and Quins, the thing that's killing them is they can't score when they get opportunities in the red zone. And I'm sure you'll have more idea on the stats than me. I would imagine those 3 are by some distance least efficient in the 22.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers, but I would imagine they are the bottom 3 when it comes to red zone efficiency.
Quins, I know, are the worst.
Yeah. Well, they were awful this weekend, but Newcastle will be kind of either 9th or 10th. If Quins are 10th, they'll be 9th because they can get to those positions. They just don't have that finesse, that cutting edge to get over the line. They don't quite have that. They have the odd moment, as we saw with Leather Barrow's try. It was a lovely line he ran, but that doesn't happen anywhere near enough if you want to be competing in these sorts of games. And I think, although I said that Newcastle looked good, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's this inevitability around Bath. They don't necessarily play the prettiest rugby. They don't necessarily play the most exuberant attacking style of rugby, but they definitely play the most effective style of winning games of rugby.
Although in their defence, the Ben Spencer's try, where they go end to end off the kickoff, that was quite lovely.
So that was good, but I think when games are close, it's no surprise that their first 4 tries are all scored by front rowers.
Look, they play percentage rugby, right?
Yeah.
They are a team in the image of their coach, who is a hard-nosed South African former back row.
Yeah,
it's he has built a team in his image, and in a very classic South African image where maybe there's more attacking potential there than is being utilised, but whatever they're doing is effective.
Yeah. And, as a Saints fan who gets to play them next week, I'm so glad they had the opportunity to arrest a load of players and still come away with 5 points.
Yeah, that's good for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought Santi Carreras looked better at 10 than Finn Russell has done, though.
Yeah, well, Finn Russell's not had a great season at 10. We spoke about it already. Santi, world-class player. He can play. He's world-class at 10 or 15, and he showed it. He was more than capable at moving Bath around with that efficiency and that ruthlessness. Yeah. So, yeah, by no means was this a weak Bath team. It was definitely a rotated Bath team. Ewan Richards, again, looking really good in the loose. Ethan Stadden had another good game.
Really, really liking the look of Ewan Richards.
Yeah.
His carrying the loose. I mean, I'd be interested to see what his stats are physically, sort of height-wise, weight-wise. Because this, which David's going to look up for us now. I think if he can get to something in the region of 125 kg, 120, 125 kg and retain his kind of ability, he's a real prospect.
Yeah, so the number I've got is probably the wrong number because it usually comes in pre-season when they're weighed in with incorrect scales. But he's around the 110, 115 mark. Mm. He's at 198 centimetres, so he's got the height.
Yeah. How old is he now? Is he 21, 22?
Well, so he's 23. He's 23. So
23.
He's slightly older than you think, but he's still young enough to be considered an up-and-comer, in my opinion.
Yeah, so he's probably at the age where he's more or less going to mature physically.
I'd want him at this age to be really pushing to be the first team, second row for Bath. And I said it last year that I'd like to see that happen more. Hopefully we do, because I agree. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, I think just looking at him now, I would say he does need to bulk up in the upper body, just on the eye test. Not because I don't think he's a big strong lad, because he obviously is. But I'd say if you're going to compete in the kind of level that I would like him to, just on the size of him, he probably just needs to be a little bit more like a physical freak up top. But
I think he's got the frame to do that. It's just whether it suits his game. I suppose it's a question because is he more of an Alex Coles, who himself, like, he's not a huge upper body like muscle lock, he's quite a bit like Maro Itoje, or do you go down the route of trying to be like a Charlie Ewells or just an absolute slab of South African meat? It'll be interesting to see where he goes, but I think in terms of his future, he's got the world at his feet as far as I consider. He's at the right club, he's at the right age, and he's certainly got an eye for a gap and an eye for a game, and he's really good. But that game, let's not dwell too much on that game. It's another shellacking for the Red Bulls at home. The fans still keep turning up. Lots of noise about all the signings that are going to coming their way. But for now, it's another 50 points conceded. But they managed to pick up 2 tries of their own. So, it's not all bad news. So that's how round 7 fared, Rory. Before we move on to round 8, should we do a little run through of the PWR who had their own round 8 that weekend? And I know, let's touch it because you were at the Allianz. You were there for the PWR game, the Harlequins ladies against Bristol Bears women. Little run through from yourself on the PWR, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first PWR game I've been at this season, which was nice to, a really nice opportunity. Particularly nice to go and see a team that had Ellie Kildunn in, Lucy Packer. Really, there's some real stars on show. Aoife Wafer, who was great. Claudia Pena, who Ellie Kildunn got player of the match, which she scored a great individual try, and she obviously, she was brilliant as Ellie Kildunn for this. Claudia Pena actually would have been my shout for player of the match on this occasion. She was phenomenal in the centres. But it was good. I mean, I don't know what they were due to do kind of an attendance. They tot up the attendance at half time in the game. I missed it if they did announce it. They were going for a record. I'm not sure if they quite made it or not, but I would imagine it was something approaching 20,000 people watching this one.
Yeah.
But Harlequins looked good. I think they've had a average-ish start to the season by their standards, I would say.
I think they started slowly, but they've picked up form.
They've won their last 3 on the bounce, so they're in good form now. And with the addition of Aoife Wafer coming back from injury, they've now probably got the power up front to start competing and not just relying on kind of magic moments from Ellie Kildunn.
Yeah.
Which has probably been the tale of the season so far. Bristol, pretty disappointing outing from them, if we're honest. Abby Ward wasn't particularly prominent. Sarah Byrne wasn't brilliant. Hannah Bottoman wasn't brilliant when she came on. Handling wise, they were pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
I would say
Nice try from Millie David though.
And that's probably the positive for them. That was a particularly good try. But for Quins, it's a good result because Bristol aren't a team that you can completely discount in this league. But they, fairly routine in some ways for Quins, but they, the momentum for them is really going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And again, just a good game to be at because players like Ellie Kildon come alive in those kind of big moments.
Yeah, you see the best of it, don't you? And how about the rest of the fixtures of the PWR? I think the rest are kind of going as you'd sort of expect, Rory, maybe?
Going as you'd expect. I mean, Saracens have now won, I think, 6 on the bounce since their I think it was the opening round loss against Gloucester Hartbury.
Yeah.
No, it might be the second round loss. And they've now won 6 on the bounce. They're top, having played one more game than everyone else. So I think they must be their bye week coming up. But looks like the Canadian girls have really settled in, and you can see where they were a bit shaky at the start of the season.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much now, So I'd expect to see that momentum continue, and the next time Gloucester Hartbury and Saracens play each other is going to be one worth watching. Yeah. The likes of Olivia Apps, who I saw absolutely dump someone out of the game. They're on a break. Really, really good tackle from her. Very much imposing herself on the game. Alicia Corrigan in the background. I mean, Sophie de Goody not playing this week, but still, you still got the likes of Marley Packer playing in there, just still dominating. So Saracens' form is still red hot. High scoring draw, Loughborough Lightning and Trailfinders Women drawing 29 all, which is an interesting result. Couple of interesting teams. I mean, I would say probably 2 teams that are...
I think they're well matched.
Well matched and probably treading water a little bit at the moment. There's good players in both squads, but definitely treading water. Sales Sharks are probably the biggest underachievers this year, particularly with the big signing of Holly Aitchison. They'd be the ones that are treading water. They're underperforming, I should say. And the league's kind of real strugglers this year, Leicester Tigers, allowing Gloucester to get some good news this year, who racked up 75 points despite taking a heavily rotated side.
That was a real show of force, I felt.
Yeah, I mean, if you look through the Gloucester Hartbury team, there's some recognisable. CC Tupelotu played at tight head. Pip Hendy played on one wing. Mia Venner, Emma Singh. So a good back 3. Neve Jones on the bench. But it's few players were given a go this week, and they still won a real canter. Gloucester Hartbury continuing their march. They're 7 from 7 this season. I would.
It all hinges on how Saracens match up to them, doesn't it?
Yeah, if Saracens have fully integrated those Canadian players when the next time they come to meet, that's a real matchup. But at the moment, it's hard to look past Gloucester Hartbury. I think they've just got so much about them. But so going into the final round of the year, so Saracens are top, having played 8 games, and but level on points with Gloucester Hartbury, just ahead on points difference. Quins third, having won 4 of their 7. Chiefs fourth, having won 3, drawn 2, lost 2, same as Loughborough Lightning.
Yeah.
And then Trailfinders just below them on 20 points, and then kind of the bringing up the rear.
Bottom dwellers.
Sale and Bristol on 1 win each. Tigers at the bottom having won none of their games. So the league is very much splitting. It looks like it's Larry's and Gloucester's to duke it out to the end of the season.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's 2 standouts. Then there's 4 kind of fighting for that mid-table battle, and then 3 really pulling up the rear at the moment. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, but thank you again, Rory, for bringing us up to speed with the PWR. We do love a bit of PWR at Rucks Balls Over Balls. Before we bring the podcast to a close, we won't be talking about round 8 of the Prem next week because, as we mentioned, we're doing a 2025 special instead. But what we are going to do is we're going to quickly run through some predictions about how we think round 8 will go. Quick fire predictions, Rory. Yeah. Sale Sharks versus Harlequins, Boxing Day at the Corpac. Prediction.
Sale will win this one by 15 points.
Very good. I agree. Saturday, 3 o'clock, Bristol Bears at Ashton Gate up against the Newcastle Red Bulls.
Yeah, so this one's going to be another shellacking, I'm afraid. Bristol will win this one by 25 points.
Yeah, I was thinking 30, 25. So, yep, sorry, Red Bulls. It's not your year, but we've still got high hopes for you next year. Next game, 3:05 at what we should call Quins Holm because it's the only thing giving Gloucester fans hope. Gloucester up against Saracens.
Look, I mean, I'd love to be optimistic for this one, but I'm afraid to say I think Sarries are going to spoil any festive cheer that's left in Gloucester. I would expect Saracens to win this one by 10 to 15.
Yeah, it's, the way things are at the moment, I think you're quite right. The 5:30 kickoff at the Rec, Bath versus Northampton Saints. What a humdinger!
Yeah, real humdinger. Well, being as it's at the Rec, I'm going to have to tip Bath to win this one. Saints have got more than a puncher's chance, but I'm going to say Bath will win this one by between 5 and 10.
I'd love to disagree with you, Rory, but I think so. Northampton don't have a good record at the Rec. Not many teams do, but I've got many distinct memories of us being really lackluster and really not turning up there, and it's hard to think we're going to be any different. I know we've got a really good team at the moment. We're in good form, so it could happen, but I think the chances it's more likely going to be a Bath win, but I don't think there'll be many points in it, and I think it will be a close game, and I think Bath will make it an arm wrestle, so Northampton can't use the firepower out wide. So it may not be as entertaining as you may think, but I still think it'll be a great game.
It could be weather dependent, that one,
and weather will play a huge part. So eyes peeled on the forecasts, and then rounding off the round, Sunday at Sandy Park, Exeter Chiefs against Leicester Tigers. 2 of the informed teams in the league, both off the backs of 3 wins.
Well, I mean, at this point, I have to upset and please 2 sets of fans who've mostly disagreed with me throughout the course of this podcast. On the strength purely of home advantage alone, I'm going with Chiefs to win this one. I think this could go either way. There's no guarantee, but on the basis it's at Sandy Park, I'm just going to give them the edge on this one, but this is a tight affair. 5 points in it, maybe. It
is. I'm going to please or displease both sides. I'm going to predict a draw.
A draw.
I'm going to pick a draw.
Well, listeners, we're rounding off this podcast with a cop-out.
Yeah, we're rounding off staying firmly on the fence. Any final thoughts, Rory, as we go into Christmas and we go into the new year?
Dear Santa, please, 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 can you bring for me a good Gloucester performance this weekend?
And with that brings an end to this episode of Rucks Balls Over Balls. We wish you a very Merry Christmas from the podcast. Have a lovely time. We'll see you next week for our 2025 special. But please, please do come back and listen to us because we very much enjoy having you listen. Ta-ra!
Ta-da!